Will Stein has his work cut out for him in year one with Kentucky football, but I believe that he is going to shock two top 10 teams this fall.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of the show, I'm going to talk about how I don't necessarily buy into Mark Pope's team hitting 33s per game. I don't think they'll get close. We're going to talk about how I believe Kentucky is going to shock two top 10 teams on the road this fall. Will Stein getting it done on the Bluegrass. But of course, I want to go back to this schedule that I find so exciting. Now, we talked about this on yesterday's episode, about how I thought this Kentucky football schedule, despite it being one of the toughest in the country, I really did think that there were so many opportunities for Will Stein in year one on this slate that it is borderline impossible for Kentucky to not upset at least one top team, whether that be Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Florida, Louisville, who have you. There are so many games, a lot of these games at home, that I think Will Stein and the Cats can snatch up. Now, let me reiterate something I said on yesterday's show. I don't necessarily believe that Kentucky is a college football playoff contender in year one under Stein. I don't think they're going to be that good. I think that they will be significantly better than they were a season ago, but the more important thing is I think they'll have a higher floor. And because of the higher floor that they'll have, specifically because of trench play, we'll get to that in a moment, they will be able to stabilize themselves a lot easier in some of these high-profile matchups, again, a lot of which you're getting at home. So while Kentucky may not be light years ahead of where the program has been recently, I think they will be significantly more competent. There will be a baseline of competitiveness and competency that will scare a lot of teams they find on their slate. Most notably, to start, I think the Alabama Crimson Tide will come into Lexington week 2, Saturday, September 12th, and lose to Will Stein in Kentucky. Does this mean the Cats are going to the playoff? Does this mean they're going to have a phenomenal team? Does this mean this is going to be one of the best seasons of all time for the Cats? No. But you have to think about the context surrounding this game. First and foremost, Alabama is still going to be adjusting offensively. They're breaking in a new quarterback. They're breaking in a lot of pieces surrounding him. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in Tuscaloosa surrounding Kalen DeBoer and his offense, frankly. More specifically, their offensive line, which in game 2, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be fully prepared to face the Kentucky front that is so deep compared to where it was a season ago. The front seven is awesome. So Alabama has elite talent, but there are transition years, right? Especially offensively. And if Kentucky gets Alabama here in week 2 so early, before everything can click, before they can find out who they really are, under a bit of a new structure with a new quarterback situation, it is a very dangerous recipe on the road in week 2 anywhere in the SEC. But I think it's going to be even more so for Stein and co., who again will come into this game shockingly competent. Will Stein's offense is specifically designed to create explosive plays and stress communication. So Kentucky might not be better overall than Alabama by the end of the year, but they need to be better for one evening. And they need to create chaos early and turn the game into a little bit of a track meet. I think that they are more than capable of doing that with the young weapons that they have at wideout and the new quarterback that they have in Kenny Minchey. I am really excited to see what DJ Miller and Nick Anderson, Shane Carr, guys like Kenny Darby as a freshman, Hardly Gilmore is back here. There are so many different pieces that I really like on this Kentucky offense that I think can create chunk plays for the Cats. CJ Baxter out of the backfield, he's a legitimate receiving threat, the transfer from Texas. And here's an interesting statistic, or a couple of them, that I'd like to give to you about Alabama last year. This defense last season was pretty good overall when you just look at some of the baseline metrics. But when you look at what Bama was doing against Power 5 competition, it does get a little worse. When it came to opponent plays of 10 plus yards, Power 5 competition, opponent plays of 10 plus yards, Alabama was 112th nationally. Again, an opponent plays of 10 plus yards. They were 115th nationally in opponent plays of 20 plus yards, 119th in plays of 30 plus yards, and 104th in plays of 40 plus yards. When they bent, they broke against Power 5 competition. All it takes is for Kentucky to hit a couple of shots downfield with Kenny Minchey and somebody like Darby, somebody like Nick Anderson, somebody like DJ Miller, and Kentucky's in business. Alabama, if they are on the ropes early, I don't see them surviving a game in week 2 where they have so much to figure out. Kentucky's offense also finally has some variance. They have that explosiveness with Will Stein's play calling and Will Stein's offensive system. Because back in the day, under Stoops, Kentucky teams had to play virtually perfect on both sides of the ball to upset elite SEC teams because they played low possession football. They slowed the pace down, they grinded the game out, and they made it ugly. This offense is not going to be the same. I don't think they're going to be supersonic light speed in terms of tempo, but I think they will have significantly more tempo relative to where Kentucky was. They'll have better spacing. They'll have more quarterback movement, more possessions, more explosives, more volatility, more points. And volatility is how underdogs just simply beat talented teams, right? Kentucky is setting themselves up very well to stun Alabama in week 2 by hitting a couple of vertical shots, stealing a possession or two at tempo, forcing Alabama into an uncomfortable pace with a young quarterback on the road, and you are suddenly in a fourth quarter game that you can find a way to win at Kroger Field. If this is a night game, it becomes even worse because night games at Kentucky against big brands have historically mattered a lot more than people think, a lot more than people are willing to admit as of late. Bama is still Alabama, but it is not the Nick Saban death machine that it once was, where every road environment felt meaningless, every game felt like just another practice. Kentucky enters this game 1-0 after beating Youngstown State, and the momentum and the hype is real. It becomes a potentially massive recruiting weekend for a team that is already building up a ton of momentum off the field. It is an emotional reset for a fan base that is starving for success. It is possibly the greatest environment that Kroger Field could provide early in the last several years, and it's establishing an identity. I think that Alabama will go down week 2. I'm on the record now saying it. I also think Kentucky's going to beat another top 10 team, and they're going to do it in Lexington later on in the season. We'll talk about how Kentucky will do it, who that team is, and more coming up here in just a moment. Before we do it, though, tell you guys about our friends over at Wayfair. Your outdoor space should feel like you. It's one of those spots you've been meaning to fix up, but you never quite got around to. And that's where Wayfair comes in. They make it easy to find pieces that match the vibe that you want. It's really easy to filter by style and budget so that you can find exactly what fits your space. And they've got everything all in one place, like seating, decor, lighting, even outdoor rugs as well. Thousands of verified reviews here. You feel confident in literally anything that you're getting with Wayfair. And the space can actually feel put together somewhere where you want to sit, relax, spend time with people. And you can get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Subscribe wherever you are watching as we continue along here, breaking down why I think Kentucky football will shock a couple of people, a couple of teams, I guess I should say, this upcoming season. Before we do that, though, I have a question for you guys. I'm gonna put this on Twitter. I'm gonna put this on my YouTube community tab as well. This is a very serious question. I've asked you similar questions in the past, and you guys have delivered. I want you to stop what you're doing. If you're not paying attention to the episode, this is a life or death matter. I need to know your opinion about something food related. I'm trying to settle an argument, and this is the best way that I can do it. So briefly here, I'm going to present to you a pizza order. And I want you to tell me simply, is it good or is it bad? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? This is a hand-tossed pizza with an Alfredo sauce base. You have your standard cheese, and then you have hamburger sausage, not Italian sausage, not just like ground beef, hamburger sausage. You have bacon, you then have extra cheese, and then you have pineapple on top. Pineapple on top of all of that. Okay, so I want to reiterate. Hand-tossed pizza, Alfredo sauce base, cheese, hamburger sausage, bacon, more cheese, and then pineapple on top. Leave a YouTube comment right now. Tell me, is that good? Is that bad? Is it abhorrent? Is it an affront to you and me? I'm not going to tell you what to think. I just want to hear your opinion. We'll move. Kentucky's going to beat Alabama. Week 2. Then they travel to Texas A&M, probably going to be a loss. Come back to South Alabama, that's probably going to be a win. At South Carolina, probably going to be a win. And then Saturday, October 10th, in Kroger Field, Kentucky will play the LSU Tigers. Not only do I think Alabama's going to lose to Kentucky, I think LSU is going to do the same in Kroger Field. I think the Cats will upset both Alabama and LSU. In a year where I predict them to go 8-4, by the way, you want to know the 4 losses here real quick: at A&M, at Oklahoma, at Tennessee, at Missouri. But I think they will steal games from Bama and LSU to set the tone for years to come in the Will Stein era. I'll give you 3 reasons why here real quick. First and foremost, talked a little bit about Alabama's defense. Look, I don't care if Kiffin's there with a new regime, with a whole new slab of players. I don't care. LSU's defense has been volatile for years. Has been. I think it's going to continue to be that way. Even when LSU has the elite athletes, their defense has not consistently matched their brand reputation as of late. And that really matters for a Will Stein offense built on eye conflict, space, tempo, and stressing LSU over the top. Kentucky does not have to line up and overpower LSU. They have to do what they did against Alabama earlier in the year if they do win that game, which is throw the ball around the yard a little bit and hit them with some explosives. Force some communication mistakes, isolate some defenders in space. I really do think that LSU might end up being one of the best teams in the country, one of the best teams in the SEC, same for Alabama, in Kroger Field against a Kentucky team that I guarantee you both these teams will come in saying, we ought to beat this team. We ought to beat this team. This shouldn't be that big of a deal. Kentucky's going to go boom, 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 hit them with a few plays in the first half, and you're looking up, and it's 21-10 midway through the third quarter, and LSU's freaking out. Modern spread offenses, especially ones that are as detailed and as intelligent as Will Stein's, can bend and eventually break very talented but undisciplined defenses. Kentucky also gets LSU at home. That's enormous. Kentucky probably not going to win in Baton Rouge against LSU because the Tigers can overwhelm emotionally. Momentum can just absolutely drown you, regardless of whoever you are. But in Lexington, it's a different story. We've seen that over the last few years. If Kentucky's offense is legitimate and it's entertaining and it's fun and it's explosive by October, the crowd becomes part of the equation. You think it's going to be good in week 2 against Bama. It's going to be even better against LSU, even if they've taken a couple of hits here. Well, one at that point to A&M. At that point, heading into that game, Kentucky will be 4-1, in my opinion, having just come off a road win against South Carolina. LSU has shown, and frankly, Kiffin teams have shown vulnerability in SEC road environments before where games become uncomfortable early. And against this Kentucky team that I guarantee you they expect to walk in and beat, if it does get uncomfortable early, the mental is rattled. And the pressure dynamic then flips back to LSU Because again, nobody nationally expects Kentucky to beat LSU. Nobody thinks that this is going to happen. But LSU absolutely enters this game. Again, reiterate it for a third or fourth time. Enters this game saying we're going to win. If Kentucky hangs around, if they make things uncomfortable, the pressure dynamic shifts back to an LSU team that's probably at that point just sort of waltzed up to this LSU game, or excuse me, to this Kentucky game. The only like real, legitimate, scary test that LSU has before this is Saturday, September 19th against Ole Miss on the road in Oxford. I'll be there, by the way. Every single play, every single run, every single pass, every single mistake begins to be amplified early in the third quarter if LSU is down 10 points plus. The crowd starts to creep in, the momentum starts to shift, and again, high floor teams like Will Stein's, you grab a lead like that, yes, the other team may be more talented and that could bring them back into it, but more often than not, you're going to be able to baseline things out. You're going to be able to continue to do what you do, operate efficiently, maybe not to the level that somebody like LSU and Alabama can hit consistently. You may not have their ceiling, but you definitely have a higher floor. You can win this game for sure. Old Kentucky teams had to control games to upset programs like Alabama and LSU or Florida or who have you. This new Kentucky team can simply destabilize them and make them play catch up. That is my take. All right, back to basketball. I'm not buying 33s a game. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Kentucky's going to get close under Mark Pope this upcoming season. We'll dive into why here in just a moment. Before we do it, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Indeed. Sponsored jobs, workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, it's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. They help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute or so that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, you can spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, it's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? Well, you're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get really overwhelming very quickly, and that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot, can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a couple of taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. You can set budgets, get alerts, stay on top of all of your upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, wrapping up today's episode of the show. Pause for water as we roll on. Again, I want to reiterate to you guys, answer the pizza question. If you have decided, I'll wait till the end of the episode, answer the pizza question. If you are listening on podcast at Locked On UK on Twitter, just DM me, let me know. I'll be running a poll on Twitter too, so maybe just go vote on the poll. I gotta know. What do you think? It's bad. I'm not buying into 33s a game from Mark Pope this season. He was asked in his stretch of Q&As that he did over the course of like the last week or so on social media. One of the questions he was asked was, are you going to try and hit 33s a game this year? And he just simply said yes. Last season, Kentucky was at 23.9 three-point attempts per game. 23.9. I have a very hard time believing that they will get, frankly, up past like 27 and a half. I don't think they're going to be marching towards 28 3-point attempts per game. In fact, the number that I have written down is 24.2. Right now, before Milan Momcilovic makes any sort of decision, Kentucky right now I think will be taking less than 25 3-point attempts per game. Why? Zoom Diallo took 2.2 a game last season at Washington. I don't see him taking much more than that. Mason Williams will call it 1.5, even though he's probably not going to get a ton of run. I doubt he takes 1.5 a game when he's in. Alex Wilkins took 5.7 a game at Furman. Say that stays. Jerome Morton took 2.5 a game at Wazoo. Say that stays. Cam Williams took 3.3 last season. We'll say that stays because Braden Hawthorne, I think him and Hawthorne will eventually start splitting time instead of just Cam starting. Trent Noah, 1.9 per game. Probably not going to see the floor a ton this year. Let's say that stays. Justin McBride, 3.1 3-point attempts per game. Let's say that stays. Usman Njai, 3.1. We'll say that stays. And then you're getting nothing in terms of 3-point production from your center spot. 24.2. We'll give Cam Williams the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he takes 4.3. Okay, now you're at 25.2. Let's say Justin McBride takes an extra 3-point attempt per game. Okay, 26.2. Right? I really don't see, again, Kentucky really getting up past 27-ish in terms of 3-point shots per contest. Is that the end of the world? No. But I don't think this team in its current state is built to chuck a bunch of outside shots and do so with legitimate reason. Why? Well, you've got one shooter on your team, really, and that's Cam Williams. Justin McBride is going to shoot. Will he be able to hold the 40% he shot last year? We'll see. We'll call it 2 shooters then for fun. You don't have the spacing that you had in year 1 under Pope. You just don't. Diallo and Wilkins have not proven themselves to be better shooters than they are. Now, their catch-and-shoot stuff and their spot-up stuff is really good, and Pope should get more of that. But on the surface right now, until we see them play together, there's no saying definitively, objectively, this is going to happen. Like, they're going to get better. They're going to do these things. And so then, therefore, there's going to be more cause for the backcourt to take more threes. I just don't see it happening. I think, if anything, Cam and McBride are probably going to lead the way here. Maybe Wilkins doesn't take as many threes. I think Kentucky's going to work a lot more in the mid-range and a lot more at the rim. And Pope is going to have to adjust his offense accordingly because I think it's going to be a little different with the personnel that he's now brought in. So not coming close to hitting 33s a game is okay because, again, I don't know if this team is built to do that and it be efficient and worth it. But also, at the end of the day, something that we talked about last offseason is volume kind of trumps everything. If you are average to slightly above average shooting the basketball and you can be really good on the glass and creating turnovers and stuff like that, go for it. Chuck as many threes as you want because volume will beat out anybody. 3 is more than 2. Put up more threes, make more threes at the end of the day. You score more points, you win more games. But I'm not buying into it. Not to say that I'm calling anybody a liar. I'm just saying I'll believe it when I see it. But as of right now, offensively, it looks like this team is structured very different to me. So we'll see. That's going to do it for today's episode of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can subscribe wherever you are tuned in. Make a comment about the pizza. You can follow the show over on Twitter at LockedOnUK. Follow me on Twitter over at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. That's the wrong button. And God bless.